Well, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. I've posted in the chat at the very top, the first three messages are three links to three very, very short videos. Probably the middle one slightly longer. It explains a lot more. Oh, hold on a sec. It explains. So, hold on a sec. Let's turn that down. There we go. Sorry about that. Let me start again. Yes, the three links that I've posted at the beginning refer to in the second video. Thirdly, we get the infamous Mike Halbach grieving process. So I'd like to start off by actually reading through once again what it was that Mike Halbach actually said. And remember, this is what he said whilst his sister is still simply a missing person. She was reported as missing. This is what he said. And I've taken this straight off the video. From what we understand, she made all three stops, and after the third stop is where she stopped answering the phone, stopped making calls. She hadn't listened to any of her voicemail messages after that. She didn't make any credit card transactions. So we don't know what happened after that. And the next sentence completely refutes that. The interviewer, you can hardly hear what they say. It sounds a little bit like, how are you holding up? The grieving process could last days, could last weeks, could last years, you know. Hopefully, we will find answers as soon as possible so that we can begin to hopefully move on, hopefully with Teresa still in our life. The grieving process could last days. It might take till the weekend for him to get over it. I want to flip this round the other way and have a think about this. Let's just turn things around a little. Teresa was a Dassey. What if it was Teresa Dassey that went missing? What if Mike was Brendan saying, you know, the grieving process could last days? Are you kidding me that the press and law enforcement would not have jumped on Brendan from a huge height? So what, am I causing more grievance to the Halbachs by mentioning that Mike Halbach, well, one of three things: either knows that Teresa is dead in order to say the grieving process, has been told that his sister is dead, or knows perfectly well that she isn't dead, but he's got to make out that she is. I don't see any other logical explanation as to why the grieving process could last days. But what I would really like to know is what efforts did Wiegert and Fassbender, Bert and Ernie make to investigate what Mike Halbach said? Why wasn't the press immediately talking to law enforcement saying, you have to listen to this? This guy has just referred to a missing person in the past tense. That's the sort of thing that busts cases wide open, like it did in Soham with Maxine Carr, Ian Huntley, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman. I'm sorry that I'm getting annoyed about this, but it really does annoy me that people don't seem to understand the seriousness of what Mike Halbach said in a press interview when he refers to the grieving process could last. I don't understand where people get a problem with realizing there is something wonky about that. That had to have been investigated. That needed to be found out. If he knows that Teresa is dead or has been told, then presumably he was told that the last call that Theresa made was to Stephen Avery. And is it possible that Mike Halbach immediately said, oh, I know about Stephen Avery. He was the guy that was wrongfully convicted and is now suing the sheriff's department. It's been all over the news. Or you can imagine law enforcement saying to him, have you heard of Stephen Avery? Is it possible that they said to him, we don't think that he was wrongfully convicted. We think he actually did it. And I think we think he got out on a technicality. He got out and he's a dangerous person. Could you help us to get him? Why is Mike Halbach saying that Brendan should have taken a plea deal? If he genuinely thinks that Brendan's confession to the murder of his sister is genuine, why is he suggesting taking a plea deal? Hell, I remember as a youngster, I got upset when my sister had been dumped by her boyfriend. I went and took retribution. Maybe I shouldn't. Years later, I told her that I'd actually gone and pleased with me. But putting that aside, now, let's see. Oh, that's better. We were having a little bit of a connection there. It came up on the screen. Hopefully you haven't missed any of that. If normal people get upset even about just trivial little things like their sisters' romances, can you imagine what it must be like? Well, I can't imagine what it would be like to lose your sister to murder. But for him to say that the grieving process could last days, it needs to be, it should have been examined. It should have been the game changer. That should have been the thing that bust the case wide open. Now, as you know, Ken Kratz has decided no longer to correspond, except today. First of all, I had done a tweet in which I'd asked about the why hadn't Brendan's computer, because Ken Kratz described the computer in the Dassey residence as being Brendan's computer. As you will remember, I mentioned that why did you not use the fact that that computer was Brendan's with all its horrible images on it? Why did you not use that in the prosecution of Brendan Dassey? That would have been some concrete evidence, which all you had was a confession, a completely false confession. But if you had stuff on a computer that was Brendan Dassey's, well, that would have been quite strong in the eyes of the jury. That would have been quite strong. So why not use it? So I sent Ken a message. Hi, Ken. Is there any mention of Brendan Dassey's computer in your revised novel? That was question number one. Question number two. I understand that you would like to see Brendan released soon? Question mark. From what I gather, I hear that he's angling towards seeing Brendan being released early. Third question. Has Mike Halbach got over the grieving process? Remember, it could last days. He famously said that it could take days, even though at that time, Theresa was only reported missing. Did Bert and Ernie ever investigate that statement of his? No. He replied, and then shut off. There's a thing at the bottom that says you can no longer send direct messages to this person. A lot of us would suggest that there's quite a big difference between normal people and that person, to the extent that maybe we wouldn't describe him as being a person. He put, Is Mike Halbach over the grieving process? Question mark, question mark, question mark. I can't believe what a cruel and shallow person you've turned out to be. Shame on you. I would like to know, Ken, if I was to become any more of a cruel and shallow person, am I likely to start doing what you did and texting sexual abuse victims that I'm supposed to be defending? Is that the next shallow step, or is that way down? I would really like to know, Ken, just how shallow can somebody become? All I'm doing is asking a legitimate question about what did Mike Halbach know? That's all I'm asking. What did he know? What did your investigators do to inquire about what he knew? Why weren't they, as I say, jumping all over him? Why are you saying grieving process when she's not even, when we don't know? Well, we still don't know to this day what happened to her, thanks to Bert and Ernie and the rest of that shower of idiots over there. But at the time, she was reported as being a missing person. Why not ask Mike Halbach? What did he know about her being gone? Just beggars belief, doesn't it? As I say, I can't understand why some people don't seem to be able to get this concept that if somebody is referring to somebody in the past tense and later on goes on to say that, well, hopefully, Teresa will still be in our life, having first of all said that the grieving process could last days, very, very odd. I would also, it made me wonder what, and I'll pass that open to everybody out there to please tell me what their thoughts are. What was he referring to when it could last days? Could he have been actually thinking about something else that's going on that could last days? As I say, you certainly haven't been told that your sister's dead, or knowing that your sister's dead. You are not going to be saying the grieving process could last days. What was questions? You're right, Jan. Look, 80 more questions I could ask, but I sometimes despair of the fact that some people don't seem to realize how big a deal this is. When somebody refers to somebody in the past tense, as I say, if that had been Brendan Dassey talking about his sister Teresa Dassey, let's change things around a bit. If that had been reversed, how would the press and the police have jumped all over Brendan? Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in as usual. Please watch those little clips. Rant over for the day. As I say, it beggars belief sometimes. It beggars belief. Bye for now.